Hi, I'm Gerard Kramer from the University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine. In this video, we will illustrate how to use a grinder to properly trim a cow's foot. When using a hoof grinder to properly trim a cow's foot, we have to remember the goals of functional hoof trimming. The goals of functional hoof trimming are to prevent or treat lameness, which means that any horn we remove with a grinder or a knife needs to meet these goals. Typically, when we use functional trimming, we follow 5 steps. We will discuss these 5 steps in detail in this video, but to briefly introduce them, the first step in trimming process is to trim the medial claw on the hind leg. This is typically the non-weight-bearing claw and hind legs. In the front feet, this is reversed, and we start with the lateral claw. The second step in the trimming process is to trim the lateral claw on the back leg or the medial claw in the front leg. Part of the process in step 2 is to balance the heels. The third step in the trimming process is to model. The modeling serves as a way to remove pressure underneath the flexor tuberosity. Steps 4 and 5 are only done in cows that have lesions or have loose horn attached to the heel. If you follow these steps as part of the functional trimming process, every time you will be successful. There's several things we have to consider when we're using a grinder and a trimming wheel. One of them is that we should always wear safety goggles to prevent things flying into our eyes. And the other step we need to think about is how to properly use the grinder. Because the grinder wheel spins in this direction, there's a safe and an unsafe way to use the grinder. Remember, trimming, the grinder is going to be positioned like this, and it's spinning in this direction. So when we're using the grinder, we want to make sure it touches the foot from here to here, not over here. To properly use the grinder on the foot, we need to remember that we want to do the same thing we were doing with the knife. We want to move and not use our wrists. We want to have arm movements and not movements like this, because these movements are going to create a concave foot. So we want to remember to move the foot, move the grinder with long arm movements. When we're measuring using the gauge, we start from the coronary band, or where the hard horn starts. So if you run your finger along, there's a piece of horn that starts right here. We place the gauge, and we're going to make a cut. We're going to remove this part of the foot. The next step in step 1 is to bring the sole down to the appropriate thickness. To do this, we use the gauge, which is a 1/4 inch thick or 6 millimeters, and we're going to hold it at the dorsal wall, and we're going to trim off the appropriate sole to get to that appropriate thickness. That completes steps 1 and 2 with the grinder. The next step in the trimming process is step 3, modeling. For the modeling process, we model the area underneath the flexor tuberosity 2/3 of the way on the lateral claw and 1/4 of the way in the medial claw. The reason we model more in the lateral claw is because the lateral claw is commonly where the lesions occur. It is important to remember to not model into the toe triangle during this process. I will now illustrate steps 1 to 3 using a grinder. As you can see with this particular wheel, I can do part of the modeling process with it. I can complete the modeling process with a knife. Complete the modeling process on the medial claw. And this claw has a little bit of loose horn, so to complete steps 5, we remove that. And that completes the trimming of this foot.